broadcast where we take a look at each episode of the Chosen series, which is a great series that covers Jesus's life and the apostles. And so we've been going through that. We've already have completed 2 seasons, but even if you haven't watched all of the seasons, or all 3 seasons, or I guess the previous season, you still can benefit from joining the broadcast this evening. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Is we're going to just go ahead and get started here tonight. I'm here with my lovely wife, Janice Decker, who is another year older as of yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And so we're just, and so now you're pushing.
Old.
You've been old for a long time.
I'm as old as you.
Yes, now you are as old as me. So, okay, well, let's go ahead and we'll get started, and then we will have our guests join us for our discussion. That never works. Come on. There they are. All 4 of them here tonight. And so we have Nor. And as we go counterclockwise, and of course, nobody knows what that is. Actually, clockwise. Yeah, I guess nowadays nobody knows what, what that is, including me. But starting there in the upper left, we have Nor. And then to the right, we have Val. His wife is there in the lower right-hand corner.
Nikki.
And yes, Nikki. Nikki. You do get a mention other than Val's wife. You know. And then we have Lorraine. So Nora, you're up there in the Tacoma, Seattle area, right?
Yep.
And we were talking just a little bit off camera. And how hot is it there today, right now?
It's 85 degrees.
85 degrees.
Wow, nice.
Do you have air conditioning in your home?
We do, but we normally don't run it
Yeah.
often because really here in Washington State, people don't use air conditioning very often.
Yeah, well, here in Riverside, people use air conditioning all the time.
Yeah, especially because we are not next to the lake, so it's just not.
Yeah. So right now, I think it's 90 degrees here. And so
More than that.
no, I think it's 90. But you can look and see. But I just checked it a minute ago. Oh, actually, it says it's 89 right now. So
Ooh, Missy, mine.
Oh, cool. It cooled down.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it did.
So the high today was 99. So wow, but that's good. Hey, tell me a little bit of what you're thinking about season 3 so far, guys.
Well, I have seen the whole everything, but it was fun to watch it again with Rick last night.
Good.
I told him I have to do my homework.
Anyone else?
It's fun to me. It's fun to see how they're developing the characters now, and to see that the followers of Jesus are trying to emulate what he's saying.
Yeah.
I really like that they're really they're listening to what he's saying. I like that.
Yeah.
Us followers of Jesus would do probably we'd be better off if we tried to emulate what he's saying, you know. So, okay, well, let's just go ahead and we'll jump in with our questions here this evening. And it says here, just like in Matthew's home, relationships.
Sorry.
You're fidgeting an awful lot there. What's going on?
I'm trying to get around the leg of your chair, but I'm fine.
All right, pull over. Is that going to work?
Yeah.
Just lean in like this.
I'm fine.
Okay. Just like in Matthew's home, relationships sometimes break down when there's been an offense or betrayal. How about in Matthew's case? Who do you think was at fault for things deteriorating between Matthew and his parents? Who do you think was at fault?
Both parties are involved, so they have both of them have liability towards it.
Yeah.
Responsible for each. Yep.
Yeah. What was Matthew's part? What was his
Much,
contribution to the problem?
Matthew's
His career
part.
path.
Go ahead.
Say what?
I'm sorry.
His career path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how about his parents' contribution to the problem?
I thought they
Probably both, and not communicating early.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
I
not
think that
communicating.
I think nowadays I call them they're dogmatic Christians, just like where I was raised.
Yeah. Yeah.
Corporate users thing,
Yeah. 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 So.
I think in the parents' defense, they were living under the law, and I think that they were doing what they were taught, like to do at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So go ahead, Nikki.
I was thinking about earlier episodes when was taken out of, was it school where they learned the Torah? And he said they took him out of that because he was good with
Yeah.
numbers. So I thought they had to have a role in that, in taking him out of educating about the law and
That's
God.
true.
So
Yeah.
he didn't, I don't know if he learned the importance of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, obviously.
I mean, in the show.
Yeah, in the show. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. He's really one of the more, I guess, interesting characters, or at least a character that they can really kind of create some interesting development with.
I like him. It reminds me of the people in our family.
Yes, we have some characters in our family, that's for sure. So okay, so number 2 here is that some listening to the Sermon on the Mount were impressed that Jesus spoke with his own authority. Why would this be so astonishing?
the Pharisees were always quoting the law.
Okay.
I mean, it was like
Yeah.
everything was according to the law. So I
Mhm.
can see why, Jesus comes along and he says, I am,
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
the law of Moses says, or, whatever. He takes the authority directly on himself.
Yeah, yeah, and they not just were quoting the law, but they were also quoting recognized authorities.
Yes.
So it would be the law, and that's how they ended up with these 2 main schools of thought, the Hillel and Shammai. And so the different ones would follow the path of the key leaders in those particular traditions. And so really, your credibility as a teacher was based on your ability to cite sources, essentially. And Lorene is right when she says he comes along and he says, "You've heard it was said." So Janice has decided she's not going to play anymore. No, I think she has to cough. But he says, "You've heard it was said that blah blah blah. But I say unto you," this is radical, folks. This is really something that is when you really begin to think about all the way that Jesus presents himself to the people of that generation, it's no wonder they say this is blasphemous. That because it would be if it weren't true, you know. For someone to come along and pit themselves against the law of Moses, that would be radical. So she's back. So we missed you.
Just go ahead.
Okay, she says just go ahead without her. So, all right. You know, you must have been that kid in school.
No, I wasn't.
You know,
I'm making up for it.
you are. So somewhere your developmental stage kind of topped out at junior high.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, if you could see the pile of trash I'm trying to get over and to sit on a ball.
Hey, you know, you don't have to reveal all the secrets. You know.
Okay, come on.
All right. So, you know, this one wall that's directly behind me is like the only place in this office that has any clearance. You know, everything else.
For some reason, this area right here
Yeah.
is where he throws his trash.
So, all right. Yeah.
Now that you know.
Yeah. If you could see it, this is just it's my office is constantly a disaster.
Yeah.
You know, even after I cleaned it up.
You don't clean. Go ahead, do this Bible study.
Sorry. After his sermon, Jesus thanks Matthew for his help. In what ways did Matthew find deeper purpose and value in life by following Jesus? You know, how about it?
I think
No, you first, Nora.
when he doesn't want to live, he no longer wants to live in that big house he has
Mm-hmm.
that he owned, and instead choosing to live in the wilderness with Jesus.
Yeah.
I think that is kind of like, dramatic for me. Giving up those convenience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's for sure. Anyone else? How did he find deeper purpose? Lorene?
Well, I think he really began to see how much Jesus loved him.
Yeah.
And like Jesus didn't condemn him for being a tax collector or make him feel guilty about his parents. Jesus just accepted him as he was, and then he tried to validate Matthew too. Like, seems to me like everybody around kept denigrating, Matthew and his talents or whatever. And
Mhm.
Jesus, he made jokes kind of about that tax collector stuff. But
Yeah.
I think Matthew really felt that Jesus accepted him as he was.
And that's
Right.
that's a good observation because and this is kind of like the first place ever in his life where he had acceptance. Because even the Romans didn't accept him; they used him.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
And so it's it's a cool moment. Go ahead.
I am along with Lorene think that he spoke to Matthew's hurt, and he loved him and he recognized his value. He made him like he was the one that he wanted to have him help write the sermon, and he can see that he has value to God.
Yeah. How about for you? In what ways have you found deeper purpose and value in your life by following Jesus?
Clear perspective in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
I think with Jesus the direction are clearer,
Mm-hmm.
and unlike before everything is in shambles,
Yeah.
and I was pushed left and right. Now there's more sense of directions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. So, anybody else?
When he was talking about this speck in somebody else's eye and the log in your own eye. I think about that a lot in my life, about how I've always been a speck
Yeah.
finder,
A
and
spec
I'm
inspector.
trying to turn that around, and how it's so easy to do, you know.
Yeah, yeah. An inspector, you know. So
Kind of like we are in a fault finding committee, huh?
yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, I, I, I know for me that purpose was really the thing that drew me to Christ. I really wasn't interested, to tell you the truth, at that stage in my life of seeking to live a good life, you know, a moral life. But I was really profoundly impacted at a young age. You know, I was, you know, when I was 15 or whatever. I became a Christian when I was 17. But life seems so stupid to me. And, you know, why go through all that drain bramage, you know, to, you know, to get an education, to get a good paying career so you can do some stuff in your life that you want to do and then die, you know. It just seemed pointless.
Right.
And so I began to take a look at, and so how is it that Christ has brought me purpose? Is that I have a sense, I have I have something to live for, to help, you know, make His name known, and something to look forward to in death. And that's the, you know, salvation that He's graciously given to me, not because I deserved it, but because not because I'm so great, but because He's so gracious. And so for me, and when I you know, I understood that I needed to live a righteous life once I made a commitment to Christ, then I, you know, kind of decided that I'm going to take on the whole package. But it was yeah, the purpose was the thing that was most attractive to me, you know, in coming to Christ. So, okay. And anytime anybody wants to jump in or say something or whatever, feel free to do that. It says, Jesus asks Judas if he is ready to do hard things. Yet elsewhere in the Gospels, we read that his yoke is easy and my burden is light. That's in Matthew 11:30. How do we reconcile these two apparently contradictory aspects of following Jesus? Because there is an aspect of it being hard, but he says that his yoke is easy. So let's see if we can put together those two contradictory things. What do you think? Go ahead, Lorene.
Well, it's hard if you have to follow the laws. Like, who can do that?
Yeah.
And the law seemed to me at this particular time, and I know we have our own, in our culture today, it's different a little bit. But the law was so overbearing. That had to be so hard to try to follow every single rule that was out there. And so I could see how, who would say that was easy. It's not easy, it's hard,
Yeah.
you know? And then, you know, then the other burden is we think we have to save ourselves. And then if we think we have to save ourselves, then we have to follow the law. We have to do everything right. I know this is an impossible thing because I was raised, you know, in the church, and we had our rules, and you had to be a good girl, and you had to do, and as if that is why God would love me, is because of that obedience. And instead, He loves me because I'm me, and that's who created me to be.
Yeah.
And it would be hard to just have to follow laws all the time. I can't do it. I can't do it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, even more basic. He loves you because He's He. You know, I mean, that God is love, and whoever you are doesn't change anything about who he is, you know.
Yeah.
And so there's a great quote by Augustine, and Augustine was a church leader who lived. Man, I'm gonna have to. I think he lived in the 4th century. I'm gonna have to verify that. But he says this: love God and do what you please. You know. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
I think if you truly love him, you'll want to do what pleases him.
Yeah.
Right.
You won't want to do the other things that used to attract you.
And that actually pleases you.
Yeah.
You know, when you truly love somebody, pleasing them pleases you. You know, and so when you have that relationship with God, love God and do what you please. And so your first question is, you know, so many people kind of like have that mentality. Well, if I become a Christian, what can I get away with? You know, how much can I drink? You know,
Yeah. How can I live at the very edge?
yeah, how far? I mean, how can I, you know, how far can I go? You know, with sex outside of marriage? What you know? What about, you know, what's really dishonest or whatever? But really, when you love God, you just decide that I want to do whatever brings Him glory in my life. Now, you know, I mean, I'll be totally honest, is that I haven't lived up to that standard, you know. But I do seek to, you know, really develop a deeper relationship with Him.
For me, I think that this, you know, how can things be hard but then be easy? And I think it's that everybody's going to have hard things that happen in their life, whether you believe in Jesus or not. But that if you believe in Jesus, you know that He's going to be there with you, making the way for you to get through those hard times. That's how I kind of figured that they go together.
Yeah, you know. So, yeah, the hard, and I think that there's. I'd have to look this up again. I know that there's a passage. I believe it says in somewhere in the scriptures that the way of the sinner is hard. You know, because the hardness of that. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm almost certain that it's in the scriptures, but the hardness of that is from the standpoint that when you do life on your terms, it never works out. you know, it always blows up in your face. But when you do life on God's terms, is that He makes a way even when there seems to be no way. You know, so I'm looking it up right now. But let's go on with the next question while I'm doing that. All right, one moment. I got to find it. There it is. Hey, would you mind reading that question for us, Janice?
Judas is resolute that he will do hard things and praise God every day, assuming that this reflects his true intention at the beginning for following Christ. How do you think he became such a tragic figure in the Gospels?
So what do you think? If you know, if Judas started off, and I think he did, if Judas started off resolute and sincere, then how do you think he became such a tragic figure in the Gospels?
No.
Go ahead, Nora.
The calling from the world is so tempting.
Yeah.
It's very, very strong,
Mm-hmm.
regardless how strong Christian you are.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
I felt that probably one way or another,
Yeah.
his faith dwindled on one of these occasions.
Mm-hmm.
And just like written in the scripture, Satan is like a roaring lion ready to devour you.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it's a little instance, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he
So,
gave up, and he gave into sin. So I think one way or another, one at least I experienced that situation too.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but
Well, I think we all have. you're, you're not unique. I have a friend who I tell him that um, you're special because his case is special. But I says, you're not unique. I mean, you've made sinful choices in your life. Get used to it. We all have, So that passage of scripture, by the way, that I was referencing earlier, is in Proverbs 13, 15. And in the King James Version of the Bible, it says, good understanding giveth favor, but the way of transgressors is hard. Okay, now that I've settled that. So,
It wasn't really in the show so much, but Judas was really upset about what he thought was wasting money, and when when the woman put the perfume on Jesus and all that, and I don't know, just from being in the church our whole life and everything, I kind of see that people who are in charge of the money start kind of feeling like it's their money. And so then they want to start controlling it more and stuff. And I mean, I don't know if that even is like why he.
Well, I don't know. I think that's a fair observation.
Yeah.
That something pushed him over the edge. And
that's probably
so
that's probably I'm sorry. That's probably some of the reasons why some of the pastors or some I could see on the news that uh, took a lot of money from their own churches
yeah,
because they felt that that is their own money.
yeah,
And so
I know.
Janet's observation is very valid,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they spend it for themselves.
hmm yeah. I've been I've been around in church stuff for a long time, and I don't want to I don't want to paint with a broad brush all churches. I think that people outside of churches do that a lot. That the church is full of hypocrites and all they're after is your money and so on and so forth. Well, there are churches like that, and there are Christians and there's Christian leaders like that. But I've known some Christian leaders who have been extremely generous and extremely sacrificial, and who are very purpose driven in their lives. They want to glorify Christ above all else. So, having said that, is that I've also seen and I've also witnessed firsthand people who get crossways with the money in the church. In the church where we're at is that where I minister, I don't have access to the funds, and so it's a very simple equation, and and I have to keep an expense report and all of that jazz. But and I work on a contract basis, it's or at least a salary basis, and that so it's not like a commission.
Okay.
you know, you get for every new person you bring into the church, you get an additional $500. That's not you know. But here's the point: is that I have seen people who money turns their head, and or turns their heart, maybe would be another way to put it. And I personally don't think that Judas started off bad. but he ended up tragic. You know, and I think that a lot of people get into ministry, and they don't start off bad, but they end up tragic. Some people are just mere scallywags, and
I wasn't really talking about, the leaders of the church as much as like normally at churches we've been at, the treasurer is just a person in the church who's good with finances or something, or someone who is on the board or something like that. But I think the person who like writes the checks for the bills, and they know exactly where all the money is going, and they know who's giving what, and they know how much they're bringing in, and then they start putting a little in the savings, and then the next thing like it starts becoming like theirs. And I think maybe that's what happened to Judas, like he's starting to see, like this is how we need to spend the money, and he's getting really tight with the money, like he's upset that they're using the money. Why would you put perfume on him, when it's taking so much of the money?
And he was also misappropriating the money.
Right. And they could have sold that and made like a lot of money. And he was mad about, upset about that. I don't know if he's mad or whatever, but
I think he was angry about it.
I think that that's kind of a natural thing for some people, especially if money really means a lot to them.
Yeah, the instance that Janice is referencing is where a lady, where actually Mary anoints Jesus. I believe it's found in John 13. I'd have to double check that. But where Mary anoints Jesus, and all the disciples are kind of like grousing about it and saying this perfume could have been sold.
It was a lot, like a year's wage or something like
for
that.
a year's wage. And we have a hard time sometimes thinking these things through. It's very simple. If you just calculate what your year's wage is,
that was an expensive bottle of perfume.
That was an expensive, yeah. So that okay. Let's move on here. In those days, following Jesus not only impacted the disciples' lives, but also their families, some for the good, some perhaps in challenging ways. How has Jesus impacted your family or extended family? How has following Jesus impacted your family or your extended family?
I think it's made life better.
How so? Go ahead. Hang on, Nora, just for a second. How so?
I don't know. It's because we've decided to live our life for God, we've avoided a lot of pitfalls that people fall into in their lives. We haven't had a lot of the problems that people have because we didn't start down some of those paths, so we didn't have to do recovery from them or, be affected by them or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Nor?
I heard it so many times that it's either in my own family or my close relatives telling me when I make mistakes or they did not like what I did or what they see on me. What they say, that's not so much Christian-like.
Yeah.
And I said, is that how the Christian should act? And you tell me you're a Christian?
Yeah.
So they judge me right away on my mistakes and everything. They judge me right away. And that's really...
Hey, I'm telling you right now, none of us can escape that. They may not say it directly to your face, but they will say it behind your back. And the fact of the matter is that none of us are a good example or a perfect example of a Christian, But I've said it before, is that all you have to do is be a blameless person. And that's really very simple because a blameless person handles their wrongdoing the right way. So when you hurt somebody or when you, when somebody's angry with you or whatever, you own your part of that. You don't get codependent, but you own your part to it. You make whatever amends and apologies or whatever. I've seen you do that, Nora. Just and I'm not going to go into the details, but I've seen you do that in your life, and where you own your part, and you can only do what is right from your side of the relationship. You cannot you cannot make them forgive you. You cannot make them reconcile with you.
Yep.
You cannot make them even like you.
Oh, yeah.
But you can just do what you can do. So anyone else that want to jump in on that? How has it, following Jesus, impacted your family or your extended family, Lorene?
Well, I did. Okay, when I was 15, I gave my life to full-time Christian service. Did I know what that was? Heck no.
Yeah.
I just knew it just set my life on a purpose of following God and serving
We
God.
all,
So I don't even know if I really had I didn't think I even had a choice. It's just like, this is just what I'm going to do. So this question threw me off just a tad, because it's not that, it's not that I didn't have my purpose in following God. I think where I got confused, and I kind of took this in a different direction for myself. I got more confused over following this. This is going to sound terrible, but church leadership, and it happened because I used to put the church leaders like on a pedestal and not really been like, they're human
Oh,
too.
wait. Until
She
you
doesn't anymore. Now that she knows you.
until you met me.
No, actually, Carrie, it happened way back in Ron's first ministry, and that's when I first had my first crossover with I've only written letters to elders twice in my life.
Yeah.
Because it was 2 times when I just felt they were not representing God in what they said and what they did. And it was the beginning of for me. And now I'm really bad, because I'll tell you, I probably will never, ever join a church again. And I know that sounds so skeptical, but church people have hurt me deeper than anybody I've ever known. And, and so I tell you, I'm very cautious on that. But actually, Carrie, you're on one of my top lists. So you're not on the pedestal, but you're on one of my top men to admire lists. So I'll put it that way. And I know you fall off.
Of course. Yeah. Watch out. Don't jinx it.
No. That's why I pray for you.
Yeah, pray for me. Yes,
but,
thank you.
For me, it just affected my family, because I think for a long time I was just bitter. Yeah. And I know I said things to my children about church leadership that I shouldn't, and that's one of my biggest regrets is that. So it did affect my family kind of in a negative way, because other than that, our kids all of our kids love the Lord, and for that I'm grateful. And it's not anything I did; it was in spite of my parenting issues.
No, I don't think that's true. I
think it did affect.
Yeah. So
I just
go ahead.
I don't think if it's good or bad, but I ditched the live message last Sunday, Harry, and I watched it later. But my friend invited me to go to this church somewhere here close to Seattle. And this is a Filipino church, but there's a lot of different nationalities in there. They're very diverse. The diversity is, I could see them. But then she asked me later, she said, Nor, what do you think about the church? I don't know if it's how I believe on how I was raised in the church or something, but they did not have communion, and it bothered me so much. And I said, it could be good, but I said, but I really need to have communion with the Lord right now.
Yeah.
And is that because of the Christian? I don't understand. I don't know how to explain it, because that's how I was raised. Because that's how I believe, and it affects on how I see other churches. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And when and the another thing is that when we get out of the door, this old lady to say, because it was my first time. Hi, how are you doing? Are you ready to accept Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior?
You should say,
I said,
you should have
what?
you should have told her, leave me alone.
I don't know what I should feel. Should I feel offended or should I feel? I said,
Yeah.
yeah. And she followed me to the car.
Obviously, she was on the hospitality committee.
And I said, was it my being Christian and changing the way I look at the other churches, or
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
just
don't
have to
know.
see myself again and why I'm like
Yeah.
that.
It's amazing to me that God has chosen us, humans,
Yes.
to be his representatives. I mean, really,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
what was he think? What was he thinking?
Right.
you know,
Oh,
It seems reckless.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. It's something that's so important. I'm going to entrust to fallible human beings. Okay, it says here, some Bible scholars think that Judas's motives for betraying Jesus was not just about greed, but an attempt to speed things up for Jesus to assert himself as the Messiah and overthrowing Roman oppression. How plausible do you think this is? What typically happens when we try to force fit God into our expectations and timetable?
bad things
Go ahead.
happen.
Yeah, that's for sure. If you really stop and think about it, when we do that, first of all, we're operating from pride that I know better. Actually, we're also operating from fear that things are not going to, either what I want to have happen isn't going to happen, so that's fear, or what I don't want to have happen is going to happen, and that's fear. And so fear always will force us, drive us into a position of trying to control outcomes.
Yeah, and I think you don't need to be very careful with things like that because that can turn people totally away from God.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nikki.
Val and I were talking about that if Judas kind of forced his hand, you can see where he would feel so horrible if he truly felt he was responsible for killing him
Yeah.
and therefore committing suicide. You could kind of, that would be plausible, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's plausible. It's a kind of an interesting, because we do know that the scriptures reveal that Judas also was motivated by greed, but nobody, very very seldom is a person one-dimensional. There's a lot of complexities in our motivations, and it's entirely possible that Judas, there's layers of
And they
complexity.
didn't really understand how Jesus was going as a Messiah, what was going to happen. I mean, they thought that he was going to have them overtake the Roman Empire and they were going to rule. And so, like if you say that, that's what he was trying to do, was help that to happen.
Speed it along, yeah.
He in that instance, you could assume then that he knew nothing about Jesus dying.
Yeah. Yeah, he was trying to if that's the case,
Right.
he was trying to bring about outcomes. And I have seen it over and over where people try to do that. Somebody,
Lorene.
okay, Lorene.
I think Judas was no different than the other followers because they all kind of had a misidea of what Jesus was going to do. Even Simon Peter in the garden gets the sword out and cuts the ear off. He at that time was ready to fight. So even to that point, they all were trying to manage maybe their disillusionment that Jesus could possibly die. So I just think Judas kind of just went the wrong way, and the apostles kind of did too.
Yeah.
But they all kind of had different outcomes in how they managed that disillusionment.
Yeah.
So
He's a cautionary tale for all of us because when life doesn't go the way we think it should go, and we try to control outcomes, that what we're going to do is make a mess, rather than trusting that God is able to redeem our hurt, our pain, our disappointment, and that he can get us on the other side of it, So, all right. Number 8. In this series, Judas isn't depicted as a sinister man, just a misguided one who did not course correct. How dangerous is it to allow compromises to take root in our souls?
Ooh.
It's deadly.
Yeah, it is.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I think that as we get older, that we have to be obviously you have to be on guard about that in every stage of life. But I think that there's kind of like a thing that we can settle into when we're older, where we just kind of, been there, done that. I know how all this goes, rather than keeping our spiritual lives tuned up and in good running order, So, let's go ahead. I want to make sure that we kind of stay within our time parameters here. Andrew takes the words of Jesus to heart and goes and apologizes to Mary Magdalene for saying unkind words to her. Why don't we more readily take ownership for the things that we say and do to others? What difference would it make if we did? Do you owe someone an apology or an amends? So, there's like 3 or 4 questions there, but let's start with the first one. Is that why don't we more readily take ownership for the things that we say and do to others?
Right.
Well, pride would be the first one. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That great spiritual leader of our generation, Elton John. I think he once sang a song where he says, where there's a line or a phrase in it that says, "Sorry seems to be the hardest word."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not going to dare try to sing it right.
Yeah, because you have to admit you're wrong.
Or at least I'm talented.
Right?
Hey now. So I think you owe me an amends. So.
It's kind of
okay. Go ahead.
It's kind of difficult to sometimes to take responsibility of our actions here, because you know what, it will show that we're weak.
Yeah, and of course we are. So what?
No, and you wanna portray you're strong.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, go ahead, Nikki.
As I've gotten older and I've tried to admit when I'm wrong, sometimes people are just amazed when you admit that you're wrong and say you're sorry, because so many people make excuses, and I did that because of this. And when you just come out and say, you know what, I made a mistake and I'm sorry and I ask for forgiveness, I think people appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then I think it kind of makes them think about them responding kind of the same way.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I heard it said before is that don't ruin a good apology with a poor excuse.
With but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't ruin an apology with your butt. Take it however you want to.
I'm really sorry, but.
Yeah. And here's another one that is a classic way to ruin a good apology.
You made me do it.
Yes, exactly. Have you ever been guilty of that?
No.
You're gonna have to make an amends to everybody who's viewing tonight. And you're gonna have to write them a personal note. Just because it's your birthday, you're not getting off the hook. Well, actually, yesterday. So, okay. Go ahead, Nor.
I think it's very difficult to make amends and to say sorry if the person you wronged is no longer around.
Yeah,
I
but I
think that
still
was
think that that's. I mean, I still think that that's possible. And I work with a lot of people who've been hurt in a lot of ways, and and I still think it's possible to do that because there are plenty of ways you can make amends, and for that matter, there's plenty of ways that you can make amends or even apologize to a person. And I don't believe that you always have to do it directly because sometimes the person is not safe
Yeah.
to deal with, you
Right.
know, or they're
I,
dead. You know.
I I just like to give a little example on that. I have so much resentment growing up, and
Mhm.
it took 17 years after my father passed away before I actually, and I was already in the counseling with
Mhm.
Carrie,
Mhm.
when I finally realized that I am sinning because I was not forgiving him. I
Yeah.
did not forgive him. I did not
Yeah.
forgive him for all those years, and I realized to forgive him after 17 years that he passed away, and then
Mhm.
so it's possible,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Exactly.
I found peace.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of the progress that you've made in your life along those lines. You know, um, and I know that we and just to, I want to clarify a couple things based on what you've said. Is that I think that your father was genuinely and truly in the wrong. I think what he did was wrong. But to forgive somebody doesn't mean that you're excusing the wrong that they did to you.
Mhm.
Just what you're when you're forgiving, you're canceling a debt he owes you, but you're saying I am no longer demanding payment, so to speak, and and it's freeing yourself of the bitterness. Here's one thing, and I've been coaching another person here recently about this, but and and truly when you've been truly victimized by another person, it's it's very easy to be bitter. But I have never seen anybody wear bitterness well, you know. And I've never seen anybody go visit an old person and after they're done visiting them, say, she's such a bitter old woman. That was really inspirational.
Oh, it's a good one.
you know, she, she's such an example to me. you know.
It's possible. It's always possible. You can find peace after. I found peace after that.
Yeah.
I found
It,
tremendous peace that almost, you know, the torture and despair that almost killed me. I found peace after forgiving him, and
yeah.
I found relief.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, really, forgiveness is to help us.
Yeah, it's a gift you give yourself, really. So, okay. What would have Matthew missed had he not taken the initiative to visit his parents' house? What would he have missed?
Hearing his dad
Right off the
call him
bat with Stone,
son.
Yeah.
it's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah,
What were you going to say?
calling him son.
Oh,
Same
yeah.
The
thing.
one,
His dad calling him son.
Yeah,
the
it's a
one.
wonder.
Being called son.
Yeah. That's a wonderful moment in the episode, you know.
Yeah, it is.
And life's too short for fussing and fighting, my friends. I've always thought it a crime. But, so
That was a song.
I know. That was my loose paraphrase of the Beatles song. So finally, I think it's finally. There we
Yes.
go. Yeah. Whose responsibility is it to take the initiative when there's been a breach in a relationship, the offender or the offended?
when you realize you're one or the other, you got to do it.
There you
Whether
go.
you're the offender or the one who offended. Because, you know, I really think God brings that to our minds when we need to make some sort of a amends. Or at least maybe I don't know. I think there's a sensitivity there that we know. Like this recently happened with two of my kids. I realized I'd offended them. And I'm like, uh-oh, it's my turn. It's my turn to go to them and say, you know, I didn't, you know, I said that. You're right. I said this, you know, I didn't realize, you know, it would be offensive to you was one. And then the other was, I just assumed. I just assumed something I shouldn't have assumed. And it caused all kinds of problems. And I had to be, you know, I had to be the one that did it. I couldn't get any peace. No peace until I did it.
That's wonderful.
So,
you're a good mom. You know, you really are. You know, I mean, seriously, think of how many kids have never heard that from their parents.
Right.
And when, you know, and nobody does parenting perfectly. You know, so.
You know, with me, I used to, like, you know, you have a conversation and you can tell either you feel offended or you could tell the other person, or you kind of keep getting a thing in your head going, I think I offended them, you know. And whenever I start having that kind of a worry going on in my head, I used to just worry about it. But I've decided I'm done with that, you know. And so when I start feeling anything like that, I apologize, or I say, you know, when you said this and that, you know, it made me feel like this, but is that what you were talking about? Or, you know, like I just bring it out into the open and just say it, because otherwise maybe it is something and it's going to cause some conflict in our relationship. But and then I'm just worrying about it all the time. But then again, it might not be anything and I'm worrying my head off about it.
Yeah.
So I've just decided from now on, I'm just putting it out there. And I hope other people feel the same with me. Like, you know, they could just say whatever. Yeah.
You kind of scare me, though.
You don't even listen to me, ever.
Okay. So. Hey, I love talking to you guys. I really do. I enjoy this. And I appreciate you guys taking time out of your life to be with us. And I appreciate you too.
Thank you.
Jerry,
Yeah.
I have a question. How can I share this? How can I share this thing to my friends in the Philippines? Do I just copy the?
I'm going to tell you afterwards, but all you go to is the Facebook page or group where you find it, and then just hit the share button.
I don't see a share button in our discussion.
Okay, well, it's also on YouTube. I'm going to send it to you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna send it to you. Just hold tight.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I am holding.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. All right, guys. I'm gonna wrap it up here tonight, and so. But thank you for being a part of the group this evening. It was a great time together. And here's one person saying, "Love you guys. Thanks for joining."
That's me.
Oh, that was you. Huh? Okay. Well, that doesn't count.
Bye, guys.
Okay. So every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific time, we are here discussing The Chosen, and you can also join our Facebook group, which is Discuss The Chosen. You can find it, at Discuss The Chosen, and but I enjoy it. I enjoy the series. It's very thought-provoking, and I enjoy our conversations afterwards, and I trust that you are blessed by it too. So that's it for tonight, and I hope to see you next week at 7 p.m. Pacific time.